Hi, welcome to week 7. We're almost done with the school year. All right, we're going to get started right away. We have a new topic, and that topic is multiple events. But specifically this week, we're going to be talking about multiple independent events. All right, so let's get going. Today, we're going to look at the multiplication rule, which has to do with multiple events. So the big idea is that when you have multiple things happening in a row, then you multiply the probabilities of those events together. So let's just start off with flipping a coin. It's probably the most simple example of probabilities that there is. You either get heads or tails. It's 50-50 either way. So let's suppose that you flip a coin once. What is the probability that you get a head? Well, we know that it is 1 out of the 2 choices, so 1/2. And as we know from our previous lessons, it's 1 out of 2, and then you multiply by 100 to get the probability of 50%. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I forgot my stylus at school today, so sorry if my handwriting is a little jacked. I'm going to do the best I can. Okay, so here's where the multiplication rule comes in. If you're flipping a coin twice, you're going to add another event. So the first event is the first time you flip the coin, and that would be 1/2. And then the second time you do the same event, since it's independent, you get 1/2 again. The term independent in probability means that the first probability is the same as the second probability. Nothing has changed. The 2 events are independent of each other. All right, so what's the probability of both getting heads? 1 out of 2 times 1 out of 2. We want it to turn it into a percent, so we multiply by 100. Let's remind ourselves, how would we do this on a calculator? You probably don't need a calculator to do this, but let's just do it on the calculator so that we know how to do this on the calculator for more complicated examples. All right, so it's 25, and we know since we multiplied by 100, it's 25, and then don't forget to put the percent symbol. Again, that's one of those things where you want to have your pinkies up, you want to be proper, you want to do things the proper way. In mathematics, you put the percent symbol after a probability that's as a percent. All right, so now we're going to talk about what happens when we flip it 3 times. As you might have guessed, now we have 3 things happening in a row, and so we multiply 3 probabilities that are the exact same. Head, 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 turn it into a percent. I told you my handwriting was going to get jacked. And then we're going to add another fraction here and another multiplication, and we get 12.5. Again, it's a percent. All right. So now we're going to do it 4 times. I bet you know what's going to happen here. We have 4 events. We're setting ourselves up for success here by creating a fill in the blanks template, as I often do with you guys, where we are putting each event with multiplication between it, and then we multiply by 100 at the end to turn it into a percent. All right, let's do it. We're going to, again, put in another fraction, 1/2. Oops, what'd I do? 1/2, another multiplication, and we get 6.25. Oh, I forgot to put in the actual probabilities. Okay, there we go. And so our answer here is equal to 6.25%. Oof, that handwriting though, not so good. All right, and so then the thinking question that I have for you, and I'm going to press pause here, and I want you to think about it, is we went from 50% for one coin to 6.25% for 4 coins. How many more times would we have to multiply to get something that was less than 1%? So think about it, try it on your calculator, and come back and see the answer. Okay, I hope you had fun trying to figure it out. So it turns out that you have to multiply it 7 times. You have to flip a coin 7 times in order for it to be under 1%. And you get 0.78%. All right, so let's talk through the big concept. We're going to do an example, and then you guys get to do your assignment. So the big idea is that the multiplication rule probability is when you have multiple things happening in a row. In order to find the probability of them happening in a row, you multiply it together. So, for example, you might get really lucky and flip a coin and get head on the first one, but you also need to take into consideration it's less likely that it'll happen twice in a row, or 3 times in a row, or 4 times in a row. The more you try to bet on something happening in a row, the less likely it is going to happen. All right, and the next thing we're going to go through is these definitions. So the first thing is, what is the definition of multiple independent events? So a multiple means many. Events are probability situations, or what we would call trials. And the idea of independent is that as they happen, the ones that happen before do not influence the ones that happen later, that have the same probability no matter how many times you do the experiment. So the coin doesn't change. It's the exact same every single time. And then we would say you multiply the probabilities each time you do a new event. There we go. There's a pretty good definition. All right, so here's something you're going to need to know. I will explain more when we do the next example, but I think it's important that we go over it a little bit here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the complement rule. So now it's not a compliment as in like I'm going to give you a compliment. It's not if someone, oh, why is it like this? Okay, there we go. If someone gives you a compliment, you have to give them one back. That is not the complement rule. Also, notice that it is complement, not compliment. So complement means the opposite. So the idea is that the probability of, okay, sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. Okay, so the big idea here is the complement rule says that the probability of an event happening or not happening add up to 100%. So heads or not heads, that's 100%. 50-50 add up to 100. For another example, you have a 75% chance of being late or being on time. That means you have a 25% chance of being late. So those two numbers add up to 100, and so you know that if it happens, that's one probability. The probability of it not happening is 100 minus the previous probability. So 100 minus 75 is 25. So let's put this into action and do an example. All right. Here we go. This first example, says Jessica's math teacher decided that for every time she turned in an assignment on time, she would get to spin the prize wheel. That's a nice math teacher. Jessica turned in 3 assignments on time. Okay, so we can stop there. We just realized how many events there are. She did it 3 times. So we can take a second and do 1, 2, 3. So she gets to spin the wheel 3 times. She really wants a food prize, which she has a 40% chance of getting a food prize. There's 40% of the wheel is made up of food prizes. What's the probability she gets all 3 food prizes that she wants? All right, oops, I forgot. Multiply by 100. So now here's when things get a little bit tricky. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this problem, and so you can decide which way that you want to do it. The first way that you can do it is by saying, okay, 40%, that means 40 out of 100. 40 out of 100, 40 out of 100, and then you multiply by 100 to turn it into a percent. So going to our calculator, we're going to do a fraction times another fraction times another fraction. Oops, that's okay, no big deal. Okay, there we go. Times another fraction times 100 to turn it into percent. I'm making all kinds of beautiful mistakes here today, guys. All right, so it's 40 out of 100. 40 out of 100. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, man, this is a lot of typing, that's why I'm going to show you another way to do this. All right, and we get 6.4. You know, not too hard to understand that Jessica really doesn't have a very good chance of getting a food prize every single time, 3 times in a row. Like we were talking about before, if you do things in a row, the probability that you're going to get them in a row gets less and less and less. All right, so now I'm going to show you maybe an easier way to do it. We'll see what you think. 40 out of 100, so if we do 40 divided by 100, it's 0.4. So another way to think about that is 40% is 0.40. So essentially, I just turned the percent into a decimal. So I can do that instead of having to type 40 over 100 each time. So awesome. So we can do 0.40 times 0.40 times 0.40 times 0.40. Oops, that's one too many. Making all kinds of beautiful mistakes today. You get the same answer, and it saves you a little bit of typing. All right, so now I'm going to show you a way, and again, if what I did so far makes sense, you can go back and use either of those methods. But if you understand exponents, it can save you a little bit of time. So I'm going to show you how to do this using exponents also. So since there's 3 of the same number being multiplied at the same time, we can do, 0.40 to the third. So that's that little exponent, and then multiply 100 to turn it into a percent. So on your calculator, you can do 0.40, you go squared, we're not squaring, we're raising it to the third, and then we go times 100, and we get the same answer. So again, if the first way I did it works for you and you don't mind doing the little bit of extra typing, do it that way. If the second way I did it, you're like, oh, I get it, that saves me some typing, do it that way. Finally, if you're on board with exponents, you can do it the third way, and that's going to save you even more typing, and you're going to be even more efficient, which is kind of... Okay, you guys, I had some technical difficulties, so join me in the next video.